How does word order work in Biblical Greek? That's the question we're going to look at in this video. Hi, I'm Daryl Burning from Master New Testament Greek. I help people like you with the tools, habits, and systems to master the Greek of the New Testament. If this is helpful, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button to give it a like. That helps YouTube know that this is a good video, and then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when new videos come out as well. Word order in Biblical Greek. How does it work? Well, when I was going through beginning Greek, one of the questions either myself or one of my classmates asked was, how does Greek work when it comes to word order? Is it the same as English, subject, verb, object, or is it something else? Now, the answer we got, and I'm not sure if it was in this beginning class or a little later on, was that generally Greek works verb, subject, object. Now, I've found since then that that's not entirely accurate. Greek doesn't work verb, subject, object. Hebrew often works verb, subject, object. Instead, Greek is a non-configurational language, which means that sentence structure is not built around word order. Now, there is some ordering around clauses and things like that, but for the most part, Greek doesn't require a strictly structured word order like English does, or even to some extent like Hebrew does. And so there are really two things that help structure the words within any language, and this is true of Greek as well. The first one is information structuring, and the second one is intentionality. So when it comes to information structuring, typically information is structured from something that is old, it's already been introduced into the conversation, or it's presupposed to the conversation. So for instance, if I say, I saw a man with a bike, my existence is presupposed, and then I become the subject introducing I saw a man with a bike. Right? But the man with the bike becomes this new information that I'm introducing. So I am the presupposed information, the man with the bike is the new information I'm introducing into the sentence. Sometimes we use dummy subjects like, there was once a man with a bike. And then in that case, we're using this there was as like a dummy subject to introduce this new information about this man. There was a man. But that assumes that there was something presupposed and we add new information to it. So every sentence within every language really has a combination of presupposed or old information and new information. And the structure of the sentence tends to go from old information to new information. We tend to put the presupposed or the old information in the beginning of the sentence, and then we put the newer information following that, along with any predicates and modifiers and so on. For instance, in Mark chapter 8, verse 1, in those days there was again a large crowd. Now, in those days places you in a time, and that's presupposed, and it's actually older information from the previous verses, right? But there was again a large crowd. This there was is again just another dummy sentence put in there to indicate that we're about to introduce some new idea. And the new idea here is the large crowd. So that's the first part of Mark chapter 8, verse 1. The next clause is, and they did not have anything they could eat. And now when we move into this clause, the information just given to us, this crowd, is now presupposed for the second clause. And so the second clause then provides a little bit more information about the crowd. They had nothing to eat. And then the third clause in Mark 8:1, summoning the disciples, he said to them. Now here we have a transition from what we've just said about the crowd. Now all of this, the crowd and the hunger, is all presupposed. And now that becomes background information to this new element, which is Jesus says to his disciples after summoning them. And so this is kind of, you can see how this process works, even in a simple situation like this. You go from old information or presupposed information, and you build clause by clause on this information. Within any structure, the new information is always the primary focus of the sentence. The sentence has no purpose except to introduce this new information. Now, typically, the information flow, as I mentioned, is from old or presupposed to new information. But to change the order of this, when we put this out of order, this has what's called a marked quality, right? So why would somebody change the order? So the answer to that is our second element of a framework for communicating and for word order. And the second piece is intentionality. Whenever somebody communicates something, they have something in their mind, some structure of information that they want to convey to you so that your understanding, as closely as is possible using communication, matches what they have in their mind. And there is actually a framework which helps us to understand that, called speech act theory. Speech act theory really is comprised of three things. First of all is the action and the meaning of the action. This is called the locution. The second thing is that we have the thing we're doing in the act, right, which is the reason we're acting really, and this is the illocution. And so this could be, greeting somebody or promising somebody something or commanding some action to take place or declaring something to be the case. I pronounce you husband and wife. That's a pronouncement. The intention of that is to declare a new reality. The third element is called the perlocution, and this refers to the effect of the act. And so, again, if we were to say, and I pronounce you husband and wife, the perlocution of that is that then this is to say to the congregation, now we want you to welcome this new union, right? This new union of marriage. And so that would be the effect of that particular act. Putting it another way, every act, again, of communication is going to be driven by some previous context or something that's going on. For instance, you may have anxiety, let's just say, just bear with me here. You may have anxiety that you won't get a Master New Testament Greek video every Wednesday. And so because you have this low-level anxiety, I would say, I promise to put out a new video on the Master New Testament Greek YouTube channel every Wednesday. My intention there is to make a promise, and the effect of that promise is to help you to be assured that this is going to happen every week, and therefore you can plan for it and so on and so forth. So there's the action of the promise itself, there's the act of the promise, the thing I'm trying to do, and then there's the effect of the promise. And all of these are elements of the communication. And so when I communicate, all of these are part of what I'm trying to do in that act of communication, okay? And the same is true of the biblical writers as well. And so the intention of the communicator then shapes the act of communicating and the way it structures the information so that in the mind of the audience, of the recipient, the intention has its effect. And so in Greek, this default order of just old information and new information doesn't raise any particular special attention, right? There's nothing marked about that. But when we do see the order changing, it's signaling the author's intention. And so this is the same in English as well. If I was to say, I went to the store and saw a man with a bike, that has some slightly different intention to it as if I was to say, I saw a man with a bike when I went to the store. I've structured the information differently based on the presuppositions and the background information that's already been provided. If I say I went to the store and saw a man with a bike, I'm not assuming that you know that I went to the store. But if I say I saw a man with a bike when I was going to the store, I'm assuming you know that I went to the store, and I'm just telling you when I saw this man with a bike. And so you can see, just even within English, the way I structure sentences and clauses is actually part of the element of how I'm going to structure the phraseology to help you to understand what I'm trying to say. And so within the biblical languages then, the author is going to change the order of the words within the sentence in order to signal something. And generally what he's trying to do is reconstruct a mental image in your mind as the reader that the author has in his mind. Sometimes he might reorder the words in a sentence in order to transition the reader to a new scene or a new idea. Sometimes it may be to introduce a new character or a new circumstance or factor in the story that he's telling. It could be to impress the importance of one particular element of the story upon you. And often when we talk about emphasis, this is often the idea that we have. We're trying to emphasize one particular element of the story, but not everything when it comes to word order is about emphasis, is about trying to put focus on one particular thing. In Matthew chapter 10 here, Jesus says, beware of people because they will hand you over to councils and they will flog you in their synagogues and you will be brought before both governors and kings because of me, for a witness to them and to the Gentiles. But whenever they hand you over, do not be anxious how to speak or what you should say, for what you should say will be given to you in that hour. And in this sentence, verse 19 particularly, what we see here is that the default ordering of these clauses has been rearranged. Now, he's not trying to make an emphatic point here. All he's doing is he's signaling the movement really from the fact that this will happen to what to do when this happens. Now, if he hadn't wanted to make that signal, he could have reordered the words. He could have said, do not be anxious how to speak or what you should say whenever they hand you over, for what you should say will be given to you. But that may lead you to miss the point that now he's actually switching the focus. But by putting that clause up front, what he's actually doing is he's making you stop, see that this is in a slightly different topic to what's just come, and then you start to take the following commands in the context of that temporal clause. And so what you're seeing here is the Greek word order, because this reflects the Greek word order, being used to bring the user and to help the user follow the author's flow of thinking. And so this is just regular word order. It's in Greek, it's in English. But when you see something that is outside of the default, that old information bringing in new information, then what you're going to see is you're going to see the author trying to achieve something, trying to transition you, or perhaps put some emphasis on something that he otherwise wouldn't have placed emphasis on. So in summary, let me give you 3 key points to take away from this. First of all, word order in Greek is non-configurational, right? The inflection, the cases, and all those kind of elements of the language are intended so that the order can be mixed and matched accordingly. The default order then is going to be from the old information to new information. And when you see something out of that word order, it's typically done for a reason. And thirdly, the word order is often changed in order to help you understand the author's intention, where he's trying to focus you, how he's trying to move your thinking along in the text as well. So those are the 3 things to bear in mind when it comes to Greek word order. So I hope this has been helpful. Let me know in the comment section below if you've struggled with word order in Greek, and if you've learned anything that you'd like to add to this. I'd love to hear from you, or if this was helpful, leave a comment in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing from you there. And if this has been helpful, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button and the notify bell, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, keep taking small, consistent steps toward mastery, because consistency really is the key. And I'll see you in the next video.